All right, so I want to go over a a variation here, which I thought was pretty interesting, and in the Evans Gambit, and a proper continuation. So it gets a little complicated, but I'm going to go down a specific line, and then we'll see a few of Black's different responses and how White can get an advantage in each one. But it's a little bit complicated. It goes a deep. It's a little bit deeper than some of the early Evans Gambit traps that I've posted. So normal position, Evans Gambit. Let's go B4. Knight takes. This just transposes essentially. There's an interesting line with castles instead of C3. Computer idea. But I think C3 is fine here, and it's Blowfish approved. I guess I got to turn off this engine. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so C3, knight goes back, and we have a normal Evans position with the bishop on C5. We get takes. No, obviously don't take castle, like every single time I've said this, simple. Castle. Knight GE7. So I, just like my last video, you can play knight G5 here. And yeah, it's going to be a fun variation. Again, CD is probably a little more principled and computer approved, but knight G5 obviously scoring really well. It's a fun move to play. So remember, I'll go over this briefly. DC3, this is a big mistake because take, and this is fun. This is going to be a fun position for White. I'm not going to go into it here. I'll probably make another video about it. Obviously, it's a main trap that a lot of people fall into. We have thousands of games in this very position. So yeah, I'm not going to cover it too far here. Anyway, so we had knight GE7, very simple. Castles, knight GE7, knight G5. Pretty straightforward. He castled into it. And I played queen H5 and won. Now, what I want to talk about here is more specifically some lines after bishop b6. So there's a more principled way to play this position. Obviously, we've talked about this castle variation, and it doesn't end well for Black. You can check out another video if you want to know more. But instead of playing knight GE7, Black can play this move bishop b6. Bishop b6 or d6, which transposes. So we'll see bishop b6 backing away from this attack if I was to take this pawn. And we'll see cd and then d6. And this would transpose if Black played d6 in this position, and then I would play here and then here, and we'd get the same exact position, White to move. Now, bishop b6, cd, Black plays d6, White to move. And there's a few move here. Morphy's move is knight c3. I think knight c3 is fantastic. We'll see of all these moves, it scores well for White. There's also queen b3, and there's a few different ideas in this position, but I like knight c3. Just developing, continue to take control of the center. So knight c3, and now Black has a few responses, but the one I'm going to focus on today is the main one you'll see if they don't know the main line. So the main line goes bishop g4, and we'll see, White scoring pretty evenly here. This is the subject of another video, but when you see knight f6, we play the immediate e5, right? This attacks a knight. It's going to force him to take, and we'll see some of the lines after. So DE and the beautiful bishop A3, double exclam. This move is fantastic. Look at White. Look how well White scores in these variations. The point of bishop A3. So we've removed this d pawn, right? And now we have this fantastic diagonal that stops Black from castling. So one of the big themes in the Evans Gambit is we stop Black from castling at all points. If the king's in the center and we can open up lines, look, this line's going to open up real quick. And I'm going to show you a nice little variation when it does. That line's going to open up, and it's going to be, we're going in. You know what I mean? So essentially here, black can pretty much immediately lose with ED, and it's pretty much game over. Rook E1 check, bishop E6 to block that check, and now as Eric Rosen has said, PP on the PP. So put pressure on the pinned piece. You know what I mean. You know, it's crazy. Boom. And this is just, it's terrible. There's not really any moves in this position. It's going to be game over. There's just, look at this. Look at these pieces. It's white is swarming. It's game over. Anyway, if you want to go deeper into that variation, you can. So we have bishop a3, and what happens if knight takes d4? If knight takes d4, we take back with the knight. And now there's two ways that, well, three ways, but one of them loses immediately. So ED loses, like I just showed you. If queen takes, we want to bring our queen out. So we'll see queen takes d4, queen b3, lining up against the f7 pawn, bishop e6 protecting, and completely loses immediately. It's going to be game over. Look at this. This is actually a forced mate in 4, 1, 2, 3, 5. 4 more forced mates in 5. So that's a pretty sweet one. So if you see that queen come out, remember queen b3. Second of all, they could recapture with the bishop. And now when you see this bishop move, it stops protecting this c7 pawn. So knight b5. Yeah. And this is a really nice variation. Knight b5, if you see c6, trying to kick the knight away, right? Looks like an okay move. But unfortunately, it removes protection of the d6 square. So knight d6 check, king d7, knight takes f7. With a nice little fork. And if king e7, we have a cool little pin. Excuse me, not a pin, a discovered check. Yeah, king d7, knight d6. And we just pick up the bishop. So obviously, super fun variation. This is going to be a W. Another variation. So I'm gonna go back, just a little refresher. So we had knight f6, e5, d takes, bishop a3, stopping castling, and the variation we just talked about was after knight takes, and then bishop takes or queen takes. If bishop takes, remember knight b5, and if queen takes, remember queen b3. Queen here, queen b3. Simple. Now he could also take straight up with the bishop. If he takes directly with the bishop, excuse me, that's not the right version. We want bishop takes d4. Here we go. So here, bishop takes d4. We have immediately, again, queen b3. Queen b3. Queen d7, protecting the f7 pawn. And then rook fe1. Knight a5. Queen b4. Avoiding the knight, but also avoiding a queen trade. And if knight comes back, we drop the queen back to b2. Queen b2. And you might think, this is a little strange, a little bit strange. But after bishop takes, queen takes, knight comes in, we can take here with check. And it's a nice position for white. This is an interesting variation. And I'm not going to go too far in depth here, but just remember, you're probably going to need to remember this queen b2 move. Looking to shift our attack and start to put pressure on some of black's pieces here. And we'll see that black still cannot castle. I have lines directly at his king. This is going to be a fun game. It's just going to be fun. This rook is coming. And now the queen's going to be pinned. This bishop's going to even be more pinned. This pawn's pinned. It's not going to be a fun game for black. Now, if bishop takes d4, what do we have? Queen b3, queen d7, queen f1, knight a5, queen b4, knight takes c4. Knight takes c4. We can play knight takes d4. And then if we have this, wait, what is this line? If queen takes is mate 1. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So that's a nice one. The queen has to protect, so it can't take. So we have knight back to protect against mate 1, and then yeah, rook e1 check. And this is going to be a fantastic game for white, and you're going to win this position every time. It's a pretty straightforward one. If we have knight takes a3, removing the mate threat, and well, I guess that's not a mate threat because the queen's there, but we can just simply play rook takes e5 again, king d8, and this is a nasty line. So you can see all these open lines in the Evans Gambit, and the fact that this king isn't castled just makes it so much easier to play. So I went over bishop b6 here, and we've gone over knight takes, bishop takes. Anything else I wanted to talk about here? We talked about ED. So we talked about knight takes, bishop takes, and pawn takes. There's, I think that's about it. That's about it for this one. Just know what to do in this position. It's a common position. You'll see. I mean, obviously D takes C is a lot of games, and it's pretty easy to win from that position. But we'll see that D6 and then CD and bishop B6. You know, this is a really common position, and knight. After knight c3, you know, knight f6, we've got hundreds of games here. So if you can understand this position and see how it's winning after e5 every time, it's going to be, you're going to have some fantastic games and some really cool wins. So I hope this helped out, and yeah,